They're like, I'm taking 10 different supplements and I'm going to the gym and I'm, there's so many things, right? Oh, keep doing your hobbies and keep being social and make sure you're doing that Sudoku and that crossword puzzle for your brain and make sure you're doing this. And it's like, how? Like, where is the time? I'm, maybe they're moms, maybe they're working, maybe both. How realistic is it for women to do all this stuff? Welcome to Modern Menopause by Parlor Games. I'm your host, Morven. I work here at Parlor Games, and I'm with my co-host, Dr. Robyn Kutka. She is our consulting physician and all-around expert on everything from hormones, saliva testing, menopause struggles, and so much more. Now, today we are talking a little bit about how to manage perimenopause and menopause non-hormonally. And so this is actually born from a bunch of questions that we get on our Ask Dr. Robyn, but also from some things that we typically hear from women. And so we were talking about how often women get told, oh, perimenopause, menopause is simple. All you need to do is do 2 hours of weightlifting, 30 minutes of cardio, an hour of yoga, 30 minutes of meditation. Make sure you eat 200 grams of protein. Make sure you take your magnesium, your iron. Make sure you have no lights after 8 p.m. Make sure that you don't look at your phone after 6 p.m. Make sure that, you don't feel stress and, all this stuff where it becomes like a full-time job, basically just managing the struggles that you've got going on. And these are not necessarily small things, right? We've heard from women, I've seen Reddit threads on the perimenopause Reddit thread where women are just going above and beyond. They're like, I'm taking 10 different supplements and I'm going to the gym and I'm there's so many things, right? Oh, keep doing your hobbies and keep being social and make sure you're doing that Sudoku and that crossword puzzle for your brain and make sure you're doing this. And it's like, how? Like, where is the time? I'm maybe they're moms, maybe they're working, maybe both. How realistic is it for women to do all this stuff? And, I know that on this podcast, we speak a lot about, hey, get your hormones tested. If you're 35 and you're experiencing symptoms, if you're 42 and you're experiencing symptoms, if you're 55 and you're experiencing symptoms, go get your hormones tested, right? Go see what's going on with your hormones, sure. But what about for women who they're already taking hormones or they don't want to take hormones, or maybe they're, pre-perimenopausal and they're starting to notice things and they're not quite ready to take hormones yet. What are we saying? Because we can't do all the things. So no, what are we?
We can't do all the things. I mean, I think we can certainly talk about all the things. There's lots of options and things we could do lifestyle wise for sure. But when I'm thinking about that, I often encourage women to find the one thing, maybe the two things that works really well for them. I call it their non-negotiable. So the goal is to understand, of those hundreds of things that we could do every day that becomes our full-time job, what's the one thing or the two things that if we do it, we feel pretty good. And those other 99 things can fall to the wayside. And some people know what that thing is and other people don't. So I would say, if we think about it, oh, and I want to back up. This is not a should. I hear shoulds a lot. Like, well, I know I should exercise. I'll just feel better if I exercise. I should do that. I should do that. A non-negotiable is not the should. It's the thing that we actually do. So like for me, I have two. They're sleep and food. Like, I protect my sleep at all costs. If I do not get adequate sleep, I cannot function the next day. I'm very aware of that. And if I do not eat appropriately for me, and I know what that is, I feel horrible and I feel anxious and I can't think. So those are my two things that I make sure get done. And that might be somebody's thing. But if somebody doesn't know what their non-negotiable is, think about what is the thing that you're protecting. Is it taking our supplements every day? Is it making sure we're well hydrated and carrying our water? Is it quiet time in the morning? What's the one or two things that's really, really important and allows those other things to go away? And if we don't know what the non-negotiable is, experiment. Play around with it. We can always say all right, what happens if I do eat that 100 grams of protein? Does my energy get better? Do I sleep better? Or maybe it's movement. If I make sure that I exercise that, or, that helps. And one thing I'll point out here is non-negotiables can change. when I first started teaching this concept, my non-negotiable is exercise. I was at the gym doing HIIT training, doing CrossFit at least 4, 5, 6 days a week, sometimes twice a day. Like that was it. My kids would literally say, "Mom, do you need to go to the gym?" Like when I was cranky and irritable, have you gone to the gym in a while? Like the family knew it was my non-negotiable. That is not my non-negotiable now. That's what my non-negotiable was 6, 7, 8 years ago. So they can change, and that's okay. We are beings in flux, but if we don't know what the non-negotiable is, kind of experimenting with it and then protecting it at all costs, and sharing with other family members. Like, nope, that's my thing. I gotta go. Sleep is my thing, or whatever it is. Making the space and allowing for that to happen. But once we name it as a non-negotiable, it's kind of nice because it's less easy to fall off our plate. Right? Like we know that that's so important. We have to keep it in place. Life gets busy. We can't do all the things.
And I think that the beauty of that, right, is, if women don't know, if they are experiencing it, it's one thing at a time, right? It's not, hey, incorporate these 10 new things. Like for me, it is working out. Like that's my non-negotiable. And so it's easy because I can go without sleep. I can go without food, but like, that'll be the thing that sort of breaks me, is like, couple days without exercise and I'm a mess. But I think for women doing this, right, it's taking one thing and trying it for 2 weeks and saying like, okay, what happens when I do this for 2 weeks, maybe even a wee bit longer. Let's talk a little bit about some of these different things, right? Because I think that there's a lot of things that women hear, right? There's supplements is a big one. There's sleep hygiene. There's exercise, physical movement. There's, I would say, like mental health care, meditation, therapy, that kind of thing. There's food, diet, protein, right? So I would say those are the 5 big ones that I think women hear a lot. Like, here's this whole thing, and maybe there's more that you can think of.
Yeah.
Why are these things helping? Like, what are they actually doing? What are the mechanisms behind some of these things that we're going to start to see relief, right? So you can start wherever you want in the kind of big 5.
Food. It helps maintain our blood sugar throughout the day, right? It gives us adequate energy to actually fuel what we're doing. And when we're thinking about food, I think one of the things we see is, or I see a lot of, is just women not eating enough. Or, of course, this time of life, we see some weight gain. I think it's an average 12 pound weight gain in the perimenopausal transition.
This is like between this and the brain shrinkage, Robyn. I just know, your brain shrinks and you're going to gain 12 pounds.
It moves from your brain to your belly. No, but it's something that women experience, right? And it's a lot of them are uncomfortable with it. They don't like it. And so I'll oftentimes see like skipping meals or decreasing caloric intake as a way to try to manage that symptom. But now all of a sudden our energy tanks and we can't think because we're not getting the fuel that we need.
Right.
And so making sure we have that fuel, and we also have adequate protein to help manage blood sugar levels, so we're not getting these ups and down spikes throughout the day, and just a more steady blood sugar and energy supply. It's going to help us feel more grounded. It's going to help us have more energy. We can think better, less likely to have that crash in the middle of the day. We can sleep better. I was working with a woman the other day who's working with another doctor for weight loss, and she's significantly restricting her carbs. Well, all of a sudden she can't sleep at night because we need carbs. Like, they're not bad, they're not evil. So when we start to change those things, we can see a large shift in many areas. When it comes to sleep, that's where our body resets. We make our growth hormone during sleep. So we're thinking about healing. We're thinking about, again, our energy stores, helping with our cognition. I'll go back to weight here because I know it's a big fuel for a lot of women, but they've done studies, and the amount of sleep we get affects weight loss. They did a study with nurses, and this was a long time ago, and I'll probably screw up the hours, but there was a significant, there was an hour that was significant. I forget if it was 7 or 7.5, something like that, where like women who did nothing else but just got sleep, lost weight. Like, it's very important. It's a huge pillar. And I understand that sleep gets impacted during our hormonal shifts and perimenopause and menopause, and we can talk about some ways to support that. But anyway, it's important there. We're thinking about cortisol. Cortisol doesn't get enough press or enough focus during these years, but all of these things can be stressors on the system as well. So we can see a dysregulation of the HPA axis and shifts in cortisol. So if we're eating well for our body, if we're hydrating well, if we're getting adequate sleep, this is true stress management. You know, we talk about stress management. People say, oh, I get a massage once a month. Awesome. I love that for you. But what do we do on a daily basis? It's those daily things that fuel our bodies, that keep us grounded, that keep us in balance or homeostasis, that are our true stress management. So we're contributing to effects of that system by doing these things, which is important. Fiber as part of our food plan. I know that fiber is getting a lot of talk these days, but fiber it's basically food for our good bacteria. So it helps our gut microbiome, which then helps us with our hormones. That's their job. They have lots of jobs, but that's one of them. And, you know, so that's important. There's so many things going on that we could talk about.
Right. Well, and I think that that's the challenge, right? And I'm sure for anyone listening, they're kind of thinking like, yeah, this is me. Like I've heard about, you know, this meditation. I've heard about, you know, going to therapy. I've heard about increasing my fiber. I've heard about increasing my protein. And it's just the reality of doing it, which I think is where your non-negotiables comes in to play in like a really big way. For anyone listening, if you like that idea, if you're going to give it a try, be sure to leave a comment, subscribe, make sure you don't miss any more pearls of wisdom for Dr. Robyn. Also, always be sure to share it with the other women in your life who might benefit from these suggestions. I think supplements is another big one that you mentioned though, right? Because I think supplements comes up a lot, right? There's supplements for hair loss. There's supplements for weight. There's supplements for bloating. There's supplements for mood. There's supplements. Let's talk a little bit about kind of supplements that you think are, I wouldn't say necessarily worthwhile because everyone's different, right? Everyone's going to have different things.
Yeah.
But what are some things where you're really seeing like, yeah, we see there's good evidence behind these things.
Okay.
You know, women are getting maybe relief from stuff that they're struggling with this stuff, or they're seeing big changes, not from hormones, right? Where we might see a huge difference if someone starts taking progesterone, a huge difference if someone starts taking estrogen. But what about other, you know, neurotransmitter supplements, oral supplements, stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think you hit on something there. Everybody's different. And so the best supplement is the supplement you need, would be the key there. So if people can do, when people come to me, the hair loss is a really great example. They come to me for hair loss. You know, is this supplement going to work for hair loss? Well, I don't know. Why are you having hair loss? So if people can do lab work to see if they're overtly deficient or suboptimal in some of the key nutrients, that's really great. But as a whole, what I see most, and most of my clients needing or using would be things like vitamin D. Most of us don't get adequate vitamin D. You know, we're not outside 90% naked for, an hour when the sun's at its peak. And so, we're sitting behind desks. So most people are deficient in vitamin D or suboptimal. So we think about that. Magnesium can be a big one. It's great. We use magnesium in every cell of our body. It's depleted with stress. It's depleted with sugar, and it's very calming. So not only can it be calming to our muscles, we oftentimes think about magnesium being used for like muscle cramping or something, but it's calming to our mind. And so that can help with sleep for some women. And so a lot of people will try magnesium. There are different forms. They all do different things. But when we're thinking about kind of mind calming, a magnesium glycinate is very commonly used. A B complex. Most people are not overtly deficient in vitamin B, B12 or folate. I think about there. A B complex is a mix of multiple vitamins that are multiple B vitamins. But what happens as we age is we lose our stomach acid. It decreases. And stomach acid is...
I'm going to add this to the list.
I mean, we still have stomach acid. Yes, it's not gone, but it decreases. And it's required to absorb our B12. And so, while we don't see people being overtly low in B12, quite often I do see women being like low range or what I would consider suboptimal. So the other great thing about B vitamins is for the most part, like, we can't overdo it. B12 is water soluble, so if we don't need it, we're just going to pee it out. So even if we don't know our levels, is it going to help? Maybe. Like if somebody's already sufficient in it, probably not. But there's not typically harm that comes from that in a regular old, B complex. And the other thing that I see helping women a lot when they're experiencing things like mood concerns, difficulty with cognition, maybe anxiety or even sleep concerns is the amino acid L-theanine. L-theanine, it's very calming. It's basically blocks stress hormones or chemicals that are released with stress. We're still stressed, and it comes in and says, no, thanks, we're not going to use you. And so it can be really calming without being sedating. And so for people who, maybe have like racing thoughts, or at night their brain won't shut off, it's not keeping them from sleeping, something like L-theanine can be really helpful. And just kind of turn that off. And it's interesting because it doesn't make us sleepy, but it helps us calm down.
And I think we can have a whole episode, right, about rage, mood, bad mood, anger, frustration, rage. Because I know it's a big thing. Like, and if you go and you look on places like Reddit, on social media, and you start to see it, it is one of the things that women complain about, is like feeling very angry, feeling very, like bad mood, like they're just in a bad mood. It's called perimenopause rage, is a not uncommon term. We have blogs about it. But I think that, topic for another day to not get into here, because I think that there's a lot of pieces to it. But it's interesting that there are things that are kind of tackling that on a non-hormonal level that women can take throughout the day, right, if they are really struggling with this. To that end, we do have some questions that we have been sent from our lovely listeners. So we're going to tackle some of those, because some of these are these questions are about these different things that are non-hormonal that women can take. For anyone listening in, if you have questions for Dr. Robyn, be sure to leave a comment underneath the podcast. There's a chance to be featured on the podcast. Another great reason to subscribe, so you make sure you don't miss your answer. But we have a couple here for you. You ready?
Yep.
Awesome. So Diane has the same question I did. Are there any vitamin supplements that help with general menopause symptoms that have studies behind their findings, specifically for sleep and bloating?
Oh, that's a fabulous question. We're adding the studies behind it there. Bloating wise, when associated with menopause, I can't think of one that's specifically for menopause and studies. Probably exists. Fiber. Yeah. Fiber for some people is going to make bloating worse, depending on why the bloating's there. But for some people, it's really going to help. So when I think about bloating, I think about supporting digestion. And so maybe that's a broad spectrum digestive enzyme for somebody short term. Apple cider vinegar and water. Some people get relief with fiber. There is a supplement that's studied for gas and bloating. Usually in the setting of like SIBO specifically, or other bacterial imbalances. It's called, I always say it wrong, a tantril. I think it's a tantril. There's a couple different versions out there. That one's specifically studied, not necessarily bloating and menopause combined to my knowledge, but bloating in particular. Well, and then just for general symptoms, sleep. Yeah, of course, melatonin has tons of studies behind it, right? So that could be helpful for some people. Magnesium. Lots of different studies on magnesium for different things. We also know it helps with blood sugar. And I'm going to go back to the theanine here. There's probably studies. I don't know them off the top of my head. But the other thing we think about is 5-HTP. 5-HTP is the amino acid precursor to serotonin and to melatonin. And so it can help us with sleep. It can help us with hot flashes. It can help us with mood concerns. It's usually, for most people, used before bed because it can help with sleep. Every now and then somebody gets irritable on it and they take it in the morning instead. But this is one of those supplements that, I would have two caveats to it. One, we need adequate key nutrients. 5-HTP is the building block for serotonin, but in order to build that, we need enough vitamin D. We need enough iron. We need enough B12. And things like iron, unlike B12, we wouldn't just take that because we know it's needed. Too much iron is a bad thing. So that's something we would have checked with our providers. But that's caveat number one. Caveat number two is 5-HTP, like I said, is the precursor to serotonin. So we wouldn't use this with medications that are already acting on serotonin. And those are a lot of our antidepressants, things that are supporting our mood, like Zoloft,
SSRIs.
Yeah, those types of meds. Yeah. So stuff like that. So, something along those lines. But even some of our sleep medications, like one medication a lot of people use in perimenopause to help with sleep is called trazodone. Trazodone works on serotonin. And so some people will get relief and support with 5-HTP as well. GABA is our most calming neurotransmitter, and that's what progesterone promotes, or progesterone's breakdown products work at GABA receptors. So as our progesterone levels decreased with perimenopause and menopause, supporting GABA and what we're kind of missing there can be really helpful too. Again, I wouldn't use that in conjunction with some medications like anti-anxiety, a lot of anti-anxiety medications like Xanax or even gabapentin.
Sure. Okay, question here from Rosa. Can collagen and hyaluronic acid help with menopause symptoms?
That's a great question, Rosa. Some people will complain about like hair loss or thinning skin or changes to texture. And, they might help. I don't see any harm with most of these products that are out there with collagen and hyaluronic acid. So I usually tell, my clients, hey, try it. It might help. It might not. I think there's studies pointing both ways. And one of the things with with collagen that's interesting, and people listening might have read about this or know about it. Collagen is missing one essential amino acid, and so theoretically, some people might not do really well with it mood-wise. I don't see this a lot in my practice, but I know other docs who do. So if somebody tries collagen and they get more irritable or more depressed, that might not be great for that particular person. It's not something I really see, but it's something to be aware of.
Yeah, it's tricky because this isn't an Ask Dr. Robyn where Rosa can fill us in, but I'm curious as to what symptoms she's looking for relief with there. I'm like, is it joint pain? Like, are you, because I know a lot of people take collagen for joint, or is it skin? Because I hear collagen and hyaluronic acid and I think skin, and then I think, well, topically, like that's not so much a menopause symptom, right, as it is an aging one. But then I'm like, if you're talking orally, is it about joint pain or joint health?
Right.
So I'm not
if she's thinking joint pain, I think there's other options. Right. I think about things that might be better, like glucosamine, chondroitin, or a really good curcumin.
And again, like the non-negotiables, right? The caveat to all these supplements is different things are going to work for different people.
Of course.
So I think that's one of the sort of interesting things, like you say, is there's going to be people who take supplements who don't see any results from them, or don't take them for long enough to see results. There's going to be people who get great results from a supplement and are like, it changed my life. It sort of falls into that same category as like, are you giving it enough opportunity to work, right? Whether it's exercise regime, sleep regime, supplement, are you giving enough time to work? And then if it really does work, you don't necessarily need to add 25 other things to where everything's going to fall apart. Right. Here's a really good one, because we haven't spoken much about hot flashes. Aside from progesterone, what can you take for hot flashes? Oh, I mean, are there other things that you can do to manage hot flashes non-hormonally?
Yeah, non-hormonally, there certainly are. There are some herbs that some people find relief from. Black cohosh is the most well talked about. I think of salvia as another one for some people, but black cohosh is mostly utilized as far as an herbal one. 5-HTP, one of the reasons behind hot flashes is the declining or changing serotonin levels because of declining estrogen. So supporting that with 5-HTP, as long as we have key nutrients on board and aren't taking SSRIs, could be helpful for some people. Eating consistent meals, not meal skipping, making sure we include protein at every meal and complex carbohydrates with some healthy fats as well to keep our blood sugar levels. So as our blood sugar levels kind of shift, that can trigger a hot flash, and so can stress. So like we talked about with the theanine before, some women find that theanine helps with their hot flashes. There's a few different ones out there for sure.
Yeah. Hot flashes are a tough one, right? Because they're also affected by lifestyle. I would say it's one of these things that I think I've joked about this before on the Ask Dr. Robyn, but I remember I was having these like wicked bad hot flashes at night sweats, whatever you want to call them. And I was like, this is weird because I'm not in perimenopause and like what's happening. And it was because I had started doing the ice bath at nighttime. And
Oh, yeah.
you know how you're not supposed to warm back up after the ice bath? So I would do this ice bath and it's like absolutely brutally cold at the gym. And then I wouldn't get warm afterwards. And my body obviously was having some kind of reaction. I don't know what to call it. Like the level of intensity of the heat surges. And it happened for like 2 weeks before I twigged, where I was like, why is this happening? And it was, because you're doing an ice bath right before bed, which it turned out after I Googled it, that you're not supposed to do it at bedtime. So it was my own fault. But I think that's the thing, right? You've spoken about alcohol, caffeine, sugar, like all these things can influence hot flashes. And I imagine for women, it is challenging, right? Is that, yes, there is a hormonal component, but I think hot flashes are one of those things that they can happen for other reasons, right? You can get hot flashes for things that you're eating that are maybe triggering it, for temperature things that you're doing, bedding that you have, right? All this stuff can
Absolutely.
if not cause them, certainly exacerbate them pretty significantly.
Yeah. Well, and one key thing I think about here is, when someone comes into me and they're talking about their hot flashes, they're the night sweats, and I ask how often they occur. If it's something that's occurring, multiple times per day, multiple times per night, every night, something like that, I'm definitely starting to think about, shifting hormones and all of those things that might contribute to it. But when it's happening, I get it twice a week at nighttime, or, once a week I get a hot flash. I'm like, wait a minute, what is different on that day? Are those the nights that you drink alcohol? Is that the day you're trying to fast? Did you skip your meal? Like, that's where we start looking really hard more at, like, what is the trigger there? Or like you did, this is new for the last 2 weeks. What was I doing?
It was so stupid of me as well. I was like, this is terrible. I'm like waking up at like 1,000 degrees. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then I was like, maybe I should stop having an ice bath at bedtime and not warming up afterwards, because my body was obviously like overcompensating, trying to get warm. Yeah, it was dumb. That was my fault. But there you go. Okay, last question we've got time for. What is your approach, Dr. Robyn? Do you have clients that want help with menopause symptoms but don't want to use any hormones?
This is a great question. I definitely do. Sometimes this happens, clients will come in and say they want natural support for menopause. And sometimes that's because they're uneducated, or they're holding a misbelief around hormones and how that might negatively impact their health. So usually I try to find out why they want that approach. And we educate, and, we talk about any misbeliefs they might have, or kind of re-educate based on some fears that are unfounded. And if at that point, then maybe they want to try hormones, and so we do. But if for some reason we can't use hormones, somebody who is going through treatment for breast cancer, they're on a medication that precludes from using hormones or something like that, then my approach is to look at, definitely we still look at cortisol levels. We maybe, depending on the situation, even look at hormones, maybe, depends on the situation. But definitely going to look at cortisol and that, adrenal fatigue picture, HPA axis dysregulation, as well as key nutrients. I will optimize anything that we are seeing there, or address anything that we're seeing there. And then based on the symptoms, think about some of the other things that we can do to support that. The 5-HTP for hot flashes, maybe GABA for sleep support, especially if it's anxiety, L-theanine if it's needed, and then deep breathing, or small, tiny tweaks in their lifestyle. When I'm working with a patient too, we'll go through their whole diet history. How much are they diet, what are they eating during the day, their fluid intake, when are they exercising, and I'll usually pick the one thing that's going to have the most profound change and ask them to work on that. So that might be, hey, strive for 20 grams of protein to start your day. If they're having, let's say, toast, let's add some protein to that and see where you get. When that is easy for them, if there's something else that we can address, then we might add it. And when I think about stuff like that, my goal is one thing at a time, make it so ridiculously easy that it's almost impossible to fail at. And how do we habit stack that? So instead of making it one new thing to do, it's still a new thing, but can we pair it with something you're already doing? Right. Yeah, and just to make it easier versus one more thing, so stacking it together. Mm-hmm. Nice. That's how we approach it.
I like it. Mm-hmm. And for anyone else listening out there, if you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to share it with the other women in your life that you think would benefit. Be sure to figure out what your non-negotiables are if you're struggling with some of these menopause challenges. We know it's a lot for women to go through. Of course, as always, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any more wisdom from Dr. Robyn, so you don't miss an episode. And we will be back with some more stuff soon.